Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I am a big fan of Harry Chapin. I often find his story songs to reflect real human passion and a deep understanding of morality and society. If you know any of his songs, you are likely to know Cats in the Cradle or Taxi. Some of his lesser-known songs are powerful too. Whenever I hear his song entitled The Rock, I have the idea that Chapin had read and understood Amos. In the song, Chapin describes a town nestled underneath a mountain, but on that mountain there is a huge rock hanging over the town, appearing as if it is about to fall and cause devastation for all those who live there. One day, someone has a vision that indeed the rock will fall, and despite repeated efforts to get the town leaders to respond to the crisis and do something, they dismiss his fears as nonsense. Long story short, this person goes up on the mountain trying to devise ways to stop the rock himself. One day up there, the ground trembles and the rock does begin to fall. The individual runs under it to try to stop it, and he does stop it, giving his life in the process. The song ends as the town people laugh him off and think he was crazy as they continue to go about in their false security. But up on the mountain, if you watch very carefully, when the wind hits the rock, it slips a little bit. This week we have been making our way through the Old Testament prophecy of Amos, and if you have been with me all week, you have heard harsh messages of judgment preached by Amos. He rails at the people for how they have forsaken God and God's way, how even their expressions of faith and worship are empty words, not affecting their hearts, and how their hearts are far from God as they ignore the poor and needy. Amos says that for all this, judgment is coming, much like a rock hanging over a town, slipping bit by bit with disaster looming, and all the while the people ignore it. Amos says it's going to be bad, as if one is fleeing from a lion and is met by a bear, or as if they managed to make it to the safety of their house and leaned up against a wall in relief and exhaustion, and a snake came out of the wall and bit him. Judgment and disaster is coming, and there's no escape. At least that's how things are until the end of Amos's message. When you get to his last verses, the tone changes, and suddenly Amos speaks about the restoration God will bring about. We need to be clear. That doesn't mean judgment will be avoided. Rather, like a surgeon must cut in order then to heal, or like gold needs fire to be purified, Amos finally offers words of assurance and hope that once that judgment is over, God will restore. Indeed, the point is even larger than that. God's judgment is a purifying judgment, and the whole point of the judgment is to heal and restore. Think about when you had children and needed to punish them for some misdeed. The punishment you enacted was given in love, painful, but meant to lead to new ways of acting that were right or safe. We don't always see it that way when we are the ones being punished, but that's the point of punishment we give out, and the same point when we receive punishment from God, too. God's goal is restoration and healing, and Amos speaks of David's kingdom being restored and of abundant harvest returning to them. There will come a day, he says, when vineyards will be replanted and all the people will live in safety and security. In fact, the promise of hope, healing, and restoration is so strong that these final verses in Amos are quoted in the book of Acts. The disciples understand the hope and restoration Amos speaks of to be fulfilled in Christ. So after all these harsh words and stern judgments, after we've seen over and over the ways we fall short of being God's people or living God's ways, Amos ends with a word of hope. As one writer says, Amos ends not with ashes, but with a promise. God tears down in order to rebuild. God judges in order to heal. The booth of David, fragile, fallen, forgotten, will rise again, and in Christ that promise has begun. Judgment is not God's last word. Restoration is. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.